first of all, thank you all for coming out here tonight. I know that it's hard to get out of your home after a long day of work. So with that said, we're here to discuss this project, a new bridge over 101, right by Hillsdale Boulevard. Quick introduction all around. My name is Aaron Lamb. I'm one of the engineers for the city, and I'll be project manager for this project. Tracy here, right next to me, she is helping me with a lot of the project work in terms of guidance. She's been through this similar project before, and so she'll be able to help provide a lot of input. Ken Chin is here. Where's Ken? Ken's right up here in front. He's our bicycle and pedestrian expert, so to speak, and he's also been helping us get a lot of grant money for the project to help keep it moving forward. Gary Heap is here tonight in the back. He's the senior engineer overseeing the project, and tonight I'm also accompanied by our consultants for this phase of the project, Brad Levine with Mark Thomas and Company, and Joe Tognoli with T.Y. Wood. We'd like to have a bridge over 101 for pedestrians and bicyclists, but we don't know what it would look like. City Council has mentioned that they'd like to see a signature bridge, and so we're here tonight to also ask you, what does signature mean to you? What does signature mean to you in 5 years, 10 years from now, and also after it's built for the future generations? What would signature mean? And to just kind of carry on San Mateo. We'd also like to ask you to identify amenities for the bridge so that we could incorporate, and so we'll give a little more detail when that time comes. This project's been around for a long time. Even though you may not, we haven't really begun design, a lot of the groundwork is getting the project put together into a lot of plans. After the Hillsdale interchange was reconstructed in around 2000, we've heard voices from our community saying that this interchange, there should be improvements to this interchange for bicyclists and pedestrians because just crossing it is kind of scary. So this alignment study we've done in 2007 was one of the pieces to get this project moving forward. We've identified the need to review or take a look at this interchange and find out what it would take to make it safer for bicyclists and pedestrians. We hired Alta Planning and Design to conduct this study, and Mark Thomas and Company was actually one of their sub-consultants helping them out, so they're very familiar with this work, or with this project. We looked at various options crossing 101. We shared it with the neighborhood and went through a series of community workshops, and we've determined a preferred alignment that will be going through the Caltrain process to have officially approved by Caltrain. So Caltrain has a long, extensive process, and so they like to consider everything before anything gets approved to move forward. And so once we get the alignments identified, we'll be taking the ones that are viable into the project approval and environmental document phase. And so this will complete the preliminary design as well as complete all environmental clearance requirements. And they'll also identify a final alignment that's approved by Caltrain. And with this alignment, we'll be taking it into design. And so through design, we'll be talking about design exceptions that we'll need from Caltrain, anything that's not their standard design, they would like a lot more information on. And part of the reason why we're here tonight is to see what type of bridge the community would like to see to represent San Mateo. And so if we could start planting the seed early about what kind of design exceptions we'll be looking for from Caltrain, we'll be able to start a lot of discussions a lot earlier than we normally would otherwise. So of course, once design is complete, we'll be looking to construct the bridge, and we'll have a nice bridge at the end of it.
So we just wanted to start by kind of setting the context and the site setting. So this is an aerial map of the greater area. Here's Hillsdale right here, El Camino and Caltrain tracks over here, and then 101 right here, Foster City on this side. So Hillsdale Boulevard, of course, a major east-west corridor through this area. Some of the major destinations, the Hillsdale Caltrain station, Bay Trail access down here in the lower corner, quite a few residential neighborhoods in the area, shopping centers. So a lot of destinations, and then of course Foster, the new Bay Meadows being developed, and then Foster City to the east. And all that, of course, is divided by 101, a major barrier to show down here. And Hillsdale Boulevard is really the only crossing for about a mile and a half through this area. So, to zoom in a little further, this is the Hillsdale interchange with 101. It's pretty tough for bikes and peds, especially inexperienced. The loop entrance ramps, a lot of heavy traffic, a lot of ramp conflict points. Just a couple pictures to highlight those. This is traffic backing up at the ramp, waiting for someone to cross. Here's another picture of one of the two-lane loop entrance ramps, and these are very difficult to design a treatment to get bikes safely through there when you have 2 lanes of cars turning, so that's a real challenge. So as Aaron mentioned, the 2007 study looked at alignments to separate the path from Hillsdale. Looked at alignments on the north side, on the south side, close to Hillsdale, and through all that, this alignment in red was identified as kind of the preferred location. It avoids all the conflict points in the interchange and basically gets you from the intersection with Franklin on this side to the intersection with Norfolk Street without crossing any ramps. So that overcrossing here, even to zoom in further, shown in red, would basically ramp up from the 2 intersections and then cross over the freeway here with a bridge overcrossing. So that bridge overcrossing is the focus of the rest of this evening. We want to talk about what that bridge might look like. So
can everyone hear me? Okay, this is a really exciting part of designing the pedestrian bridge. And what I'm going to do is give you architecture, bridge architecture, kind of 101, and what steps will be going through. And a lot of times communities haven't designed a bridge before, and so they don't know exactly where to start or what to do. And so I'm going to show you the process that we use to get people to understand what are the important steps and order of magnitude. You know, like when you start drawing the figure, you don't start drawing the eyelashes, you draw the whole thing. And so what we're going to do is we're giving you ideas of the global architecture, and as we find out what your preferences are, the bridges will get more and more defined. And so we're kind of at this stage. This is a project we had in St. Croix, Minnesota, and we started off very similar to this. We're just showing people what the bridge types were from an engineering, the number of lanes, how high they were, all those other things. And that's sort of some of the stuff we'll show you tonight. After a first meeting, people told us what they wanted the bridge to say, what was the expression they wanted. And so we started doing some really crazy sketches. You know, we're architects, and so we just do crazy stuff. And so started coming up with things, and we tried to match the expectations of the community and how that would be. These concepts then get reviewed from an engineering standpoint and cost and all these other pieces, and we start developing much more refined, less crazy things. And yes, there's no railing on this drawing, but there will be railings on things like that. But we took some liberties at those early stages. You start to get a feel of the bridge in terms of all the tectonics, the structural pieces that are needed, the sizes, the scale. And then as we start developing on a project like this, a lot of times people want to focus with the main span, the bridge over 101. That sometimes sets the character, and then that character gets spread throughout. This is an example of one of the touchdowns of that bridge. And once the character started getting developed, we started getting more detail on the approaches and understand the landscape and all those other pieces. The next step is we do computer models where all the engineering is in there for the sizes, the shapes, and you can really see the bridges from a lot of different viewpoints. And we have the railings now, you see on here. And so you really get a realistic, these are all to scale, so they're not the sketches. And then this was the final design and how we make it all pretty. You're supposed to go, ooh, at this point. But this is kind of the overview of the process that we're going to go through. And so we're at the very, very beginning. I think it's one of the most exciting ones because everything's on the table, all the things you want to see, what's important to you. We want to hear that and then come up with some ideas that reflect what you want the bridge to say about San Mateo and the community. And personally, for me, bridge architecture is sculpting what's needed to be there to have an expression. It's not what it used to be. This is a very beautiful bridge. This is the Louis XIV bridge in Paris. It's basically an open spandrel bridge with a lot of stuff on it, you know, just decoration. And that's very expensive, really expensive to maintain. And it was great back when it was built, but not so much now. What I try to do is take the structure that is there and sculpt it to say something. And so, again, this is very early in the stage, these are two bridges designed by famous architects. And this one was designed by Palladio. And, okay, when do you think this bridge was designed? Give me an idea. What year? Just shot. 1960?
Earlier.
1980?
Late 30s.
Late 30s? Come on, give me one other one.
1860.
This bridge was designed in 1502 by Leonardo da Vinci. It's pretty cool. So when people talk about historical bridges, they say, well, 1502 is kind of historical, and you know that doesn't look like all the historical things. And so, just to give you an idea of some what architects can do, and then this is probably the most important thing tonight is when you say signature. Sometimes people think it needs to be a world record span or something like that. But for me, what it is a bridge that says something about a particular community. If we took the Golden Gate Bridge in Ohio and put it in Ohio, it's not so great. You know, you need the site, you need the hills, you need the time of day, you need the clouds, you need all those things. You put it into a flat site or something, it's not such a great bridge. This is a Rialto Bridge in Venice. Everyone knows that bridge. It's not a world record span. It is on every postcard you go to Venice. You know exactly where that bridge is. But that bridge matches the community needs and what the community wants to say. And this bridge was designed in 1933 by a Swiss engineer. And it was a world record at this time. But for me, that looks like a little gazelle jumping across the canyon, you know? And it's 1933. If I asked you again, you guys probably was in 1970. And so signature for me is what you want it to say. When people see it, what do they want it to say? Oh, that's San Mateo. That's what it means. And then particularly in a pedestrian bridge, scale is very important because you see it from distances, you're using it. Pedestrians and bicycles are using, the materials are going to be very important, but it also has to fit within the larger context. You have to think about the speeds that are people going. Some people, depending on time of day, on 101 will be going 70 or 5 miles an hour, but you know, there's all different speeds and what's going on, and so you have to think about it in the overall context. And by the way, most of these bridges are mine, so just this is the Hoover Dam Bridge, and this is an early study for the Bay Bridge. But the scale and how it all fits and speeds and where people are going to see the bridge has a lot to do with the character as well. This is really cool. So this is a tunnel going onto a bridge in Japan. It was designed by Pei. And I showed you this because it's really important. This is a tunnel, a bore, a circular bore going into a mountain, right? When you're going into the tunnel, it looks like a circle, right? But Pei, being as creative as he is, and this is the cable stay bridge on the other side of it, he put the face of the bore on an angle. So when you're coming out of the tunnel, you don't read a circle, you read an ellipse. And see how this ellipse relates to the shape of that arch? You don't get it going the other way. You see that shape of the arch in the circle. So you can design the bridge depending on the direction and your perception to have a different experience. And most bridges are designed to have the same experience in both ways, and it gets kind of boring. But you can design it in a way that, depending on your direction of travel, could be completely different if that's important. Isn't that cool? And then, Joe, this is your part.
No, you can keep going. Go through these ones, Mike.
I'll go through these?
Yeah.
So the expression that structures can have, and we have a whole bunch of things to show you. So these are cable stayed bridges, and you guys are all probably familiar with this. This is Caltrain's bridge up in Reading. This is the Puente Centenario bridge that we designed over the Panama Canal. This is a pedestrian bridge I did in China, and this is in England, where just we're showing you that you can have something that's very stable. It's very uniform. You look at it, you're not, there's no kinetic nature. You could design it in a way where it's something like this, where the way that it's designed has an implied kinetics with the way the cables are going, the angles of the masts are going. You can incline the tower, which has also very asymmetrical feelings to it. This is just really cool. This is an architect came up with this idea, and I love this image. It's a very dreamlike feeling that you have going through it, and that was the way he designed that bridge, is to make it have this very kind of mystical, great feeling. Or this one's kind of heavy. They wanted a heavy, massive bridge in that site, and so they designed it to make it look really heavy. Suspension bridges. This is Joe's project in San Diego. This is Harbor Drive. If you go down to see the Padres play. This is the same bridge. This is designed by Schleich, a German engineer, where what was really important in this project was lighting the deck, not necessarily the cable. So what is happening is there a cable that goes from here up to the tower and down here, and there are hangers that go support it. You can see it here during the day. But they wanted to design so it was, you kind of floated. You saw the sidewalk, you didn't see the structure so much during the day. This is a bridge, this is in England, right, Joe? This one? Yeah. This is a Millennium Bridge in London, suspension bridge. You probably heard about this one. And this is also one in Japan, where it's a suspension bridge designed to be up in the canopy of the trees and have the experience of going through the trees and not really touching the ground and having a very small footprint. Arches, I already showed you these. Arches are really exciting. For a long time, arches weren't built in the United States. FHWA didn't like them because they weren't redundant. They didn't have, if something broke, the whole thing would fall apart. That's not the case anymore. We're designing them very differently. So arches are very, very popular. This is in Australia where there's one rib that goes across, and instead of having hangers, has big steel members that go through it. And this is in northern England. It's designed by Wilkinson Air. It's called the Gateshead Bridge, and it was designed to be mostly it's a pedestrian bridge on a flat condition. When a tall ship would come through, the whole thing rotates up and lets the ships go through, and then it goes back down. Kind of cool. And these are, a lot of the times when people talk about girder bridges, they think of very boring structures. And these are trusses / girders, where this is a bridge where, you see the noise wall was continued along across the bridge, and it had these little slotted openings so you could see it. And there's a real sense of mystery of how this thing is supported. You know, your intuition thinks there should be a column or something, but they intentionally kept it free floating and being cantilevered off the side. And these are just crazy. You know, this is just this glass. This is a glass roof, and then they built this in the Czech Republic. And this is another versions of trusses, where trusses don't have to be, you know, the old Buick commercial, not your grandfather's Buick anymore. You know, the trusses have been designed to be really, really interesting. So they don't have to be really like railroad trusses anymore. You can be really, really well fun. This is that one I showed you before from inside. So you have this real big truss structure above with glass and some hangers holding the deck up. And these are some more trusses. And these are girders. These are really kind of crazy girder. This is up in Seattle. This is a land bridge where the landscape literally comes up onto the bridge and across the bridge and then back down the other side, so you don't feel like you've left the landscape on either side. It's not like landscape, bridge, landscape. It's just landscape all the way across. And these are some funny ones. This is in Denmark, where that was an old fort, and they wanted to use it as a tourist thing, and they didn't want a bridge in there, so they figured out how could you design something that wouldn't interrupt the landscape. So those crazy Dutch, they sunk the bridge into the moat. So when you walk across, you're walking in the water, and then up this is the wall to the fort. And that's what it's like. This is in China. She's not really happy about walking on that bridge, but I told you the experiences you could get about that. And this is over the Colorado River. It's an Indian reservation where they put a bridge of cantilevers across the Colorado River, really, really high up in the air with a glass deck. And these are just crazy architect stuff. I love this one. It's a trampoline bridge. It's not so great for ADA or bikes, but it's kind of fun. The idea of like bouncing across it. This one is an amphitheater in the middle of the water. This one, the bridge deck wraps around and creates a space inside and protection, so if you want to meet someone. And this one is a small bridge in London that in the down position is like this, and it literally rolls up in case a boat wants to come through, and it rolls into the circle. And then these are shell structures. These were really popular in the 60s a lot of the times, and modern engineering allows us to do it now, where they are basically a shell piece with the very thin hangers that hold the walkway up. And that's it for me.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Great, thanks, Michael. So Michael went through some of the different bridge types, and now I want to show you just some specific pedestrian bridges that were done that are expressions of some of these bridge types. So just kind of looking at some some pedestrian bridge type options. And again, be thinking of the different components that, you know, you want to see expressed as the signature structure for San Mateo. The Caltrain staple, you know, if Caltrains were building the bridge, you'd probably get that. So just a basic concrete, pre-stressed concrete box girder bridge. It's probably the most cost-effective structure that there is, and just pretty basic and simple. But you can do other things to enhance a simple box girder bridge, and this is the one that we did at Belmont Avenue. And you can see that basically, you know, this is a box girder bridge, but there's some things that were done to enhance it, economically enhance it. You can see that, you know, we have a railing as an expression, you know, the blue painted railing. You can see that the concrete is all colored, and you can see the forms that are used for the superstructure and for the columns are unique to give it an enhanced aesthetic and architectural appearance. And then, of course, you can see the curves in the bridge to give it, you know, a more dynamic feeling and kind of make it more interesting than just a straight bridge right across the road. This is a bridge I designed in San Diego. It's the Rose Creek pedestrian bridge, real long span, but you can see that it's a box girder bridge also, but you can see that by haunching it, you're able to lengthen that span. It's a 260-foot clear span. So there's things, again, to do, you can do to a standard box girder like we saw in that first picture to enhance them and make them look much more special and unique. This is just a box girder bridge also, but you can see the elevators on each side. You can see how this creates a, you know, an entry point for the city of Dana Point. And you can see how you can do thematic things that are going to relate to the community context. And you can see how lighting and the railings can make a structure that, again, is a standard box girder, make it something unique. This is the bridge that Michael showed you before that I designed in San Diego at Harbor Drive. You know, this is a unique structure. You can see that the pylon's inclined. You can see the main suspension cable, and the hangers are only tied into one side of the bridge deck. This is one I designed. It's now under construction in Doha, Qatar. And this is a cable stay bridge. You can see the pathway is kind of, if you look down on it in plan view, it's kind of reminiscent of what a necklace might look like. And that was kind of the concept that was behind that. This one even has seating areas. There's a kiosk on the middle of the bridge that they're going to serve coffee on. And you can see the landscaping that we've done at the ends of the bridges. Also, you know, the landscaping obviously can play have a major effect on how the overall bridge is looked and considered and felt in that user experience. So bridge that we designed over Tippytown Lake, and it's an arch bridge, and you can see here again that there's certain things that have been done to make this more unique. The use of the canopies here, and you can see the lighting and the railings also add to the overall architectural features of the bridge. This what's called a stress river bridge. I designed this one in San Diego also. It's over Lake Hodges. It's actually one of the longest stress river bridge in the world. It's 990 feet long, but what's unique about this is basically it's a suspension bridge, and the cable is inside that bridge deck. It's achieved remarkably long spans. These are 330-foot spans, and the structure depth is 16 inches. I mean, if this was going to be a box girder bridge with 330-foot spans, the structure depth would have to be about 14 feet deep to carry that. So, and then these are just some other arches, and these are ones that Michael and I worked on in Florida and I-4. And these are kind of showing you know, some architectural features, but I also wanted to show you, you know, the expressions that will, or the boards that we'll be producing that will help to, as we move through this process, to help show you the concept.
So I can move back one.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, Joe. But this is one of those bridges where the community wanted the direction depends on what you would see. So on the bottom left-hand side, when you're going in that direction, that's what the bridge would look like. going in the opposite direction, doesn't look like the arches cross each other. And so it's a real subtle thing. I'm sorry, Joe, but that was one of those things where going in one direction they look like they cross, in the other direction they don't look like they crossed. And that was really important to that community.
And then here's just some local bridges that you have. And I just wanted to show those as examples of structures that the communities have looked at that have been specific for them. The other thing that's very important now too is thinking about and defining the details. As Michael mentioned, on a pedestrian bridge, you're going to be very close to it. You see things. You're not driving 70 miles an hour down the bridge. So it's a totally different user experience to be a pedestrian on a bridge than it is to be a driver driving over a vehicular bridge. It's attention to these details is important. And the reason why I bring it up now, even though we're developing concepts, why this is important is because some of these details and the materials that we use can significantly affect construction costs. And so we do kind of a standard box girder bridge. The construction cost only, which does not account for any engineering costs, it doesn't account for supervision and inspection during construction. It doesn't account for the city's costs or Caltrain's costs. There's a lot of other stuff that has to go into that. But just for the bridge, it would be on the order of around $10 million to do a box girder. You do something more like this cable stayed bridge, which is a pretty plain, in relative terms, cable supported structure. That'd be on the order of like $20 million. And then something like Harbor Drive, where it's a unique type of a structure, self-anchored suspension bridge, support on one side, that kind of stuff. That'd probably be in the $30 million range. So those just kind of give you some idea of what we're looking at for a cost.
Is the middle one?
I'll just step through these real quick. These are taking some of those standard forms that we talked about, box girder, cable stay, and imposing those on the site. So these are just very simple renderings that show basically our site context for a structure. And again, what I wanted to do with these is not say, okay, we've developed a box girder here and take a look at it and tell me if you like it or not. But are there certain elements that you do like in it, and trying to express how that does fit into the site and how the site context is critical in developing these concepts. So this just shows, different types of railings that we might have on a structure like that. This is basically the box girder bridge, but doing something like with a canopy, adding some kind of canopy on it to kind of make it more interesting, provide some shade and protection for the pedestrians, and give it, an experience not only for the user on the bridge, but also for people driving along Highway 101. But you can see how it makes it much more interesting for the user experience to be walking over something that has some kind of covering or something sticking up from the sides and just over a box girder bridge. And then you could do something that would be more thematic, maybe, looking again how the bridge fits in to the site context and how it relates to architecture around us. So there's things that we could do. Maybe it would have some kind of architectural or a Spanish type of theme. And then this is just a depiction of maybe what some kind of cable stay bridge might look like. This one has a very organic form for the tower, but towers can be anything on a cable stay bridge. It can be much more angular, less organic. We have a canopy that's over here that's shown, and supported by the stays to add interest and help to further that user experience and define that experience for the pedestrians and users. And then this is kind of a much more modern type of a structure where it would be, this is like a helical type of truss bridge. And you can see that you can do different things, with trusses, as Michael had mentioned and described, and, creating an experience, again, for the user, using different kinds of meshes and colorations for the paneling on the truss itself. So that's what I wanted to show you, and again, the point of it is to get you guys thinking about what is signature to you.
So Station 1's going to be over in this area. We're going to have easels set up with a lot of the pictures that you saw here that was just presented to you. And you can come, we're going to hand you stickers, and the non-red stickers mean you like it. So you would put it on the various pictures that you see. If you really dislike something, we're asking you to put red stickers. And there's going to be a variety of pictures on here, and a lot of them were very nicely presented by Michael and Joe. And then we're going to have 2 stations on either side of the room, Station 2 and Station 3. On the back of the agenda, if you picked up agenda coming in, there's post-its with questions posed. Station 2 asks, what does a signature mean to you? And it's kind of what we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes. And we're looking for, it's a personal question. What does signature mean to you? Jot down a couple things, slap it on the post-it, and then put it at Station 2. And station number 3 is amenities that you would like. Again, it's early on in the process, but these are some of the things that we want to get now early in, because it will affect costs down the road. Amenities that you'd like to see in the bridge. There's an easel in the back. We're going to have some pictures of types of amenities that you'd like to see. Benches, lighting, a lookout over the freeway. Station number 4, and I think most interesting, is draw a bridge. So this is for our right-brainers in the crowd, and draw your heart's desire, what you foresee, what you've been dreaming about up until this workshop. And with that, I'm going to close it. We have about 20 minutes, and when we come back from the recess, we're going to open it up for speakers.
There's a larger element.
Like this is lighting, right?
That's canceling out. So something like this works because there's surface area. You can light things and you can see it.
Thank you. Welcome.
That's right. So station number 1 I thought was really interesting. The one thing that I saw that was not very popular was Spanish style. So I don't think we're going to be seeing Spanish style in San Mateo. Spanish style, I don't know. It was a box girder with Spanish elements.
Like the little caps on the.
Yeah. Not a big fan favorite here.
That
Yeah. Station number 2 was, we were asking, what does signature mean to you? We a lot of repeated themes. A lot of wanting to see the hills of Hillsdale represented in the bridge. I was seeing a lot of less is more, clean, simple, nothing too boxy, too bulky. There was a lot of reference to Bay Meadows because it's nearby, using that as a historical background because Bay Meadows was nearby. Again, reference to the shape of the hills being into the design of the bridge. Station 3, we were talking about elements. there was a lot of contradiction. I mean, we were asking people to put in their point of view. A lot of people wanted shade covering. A lot of people didn't want shade covering. A lot of people wanted benches. A lot of people don't want benches. One thing that was pretty consistent was lighting. Lighting, obviously for security reasons. There was mention of security cameras. There was mention a lot about good sight lines. So on the design, sometimes we have meandering through. Sometimes you want to see the sight lines so you can see who's coming towards you and you can see what's going forward. And wide. Station number 4, very excited, real quick. We had some great designs. I think we saw this in our presentation, the clamshell, very nice. We also had, this one was very creative. It's a cable bridge, but implementing our famous oak tree design into the bridge design. And then my personal favorite was from Addison and from Brandon. Brandon has a giant minion, so he would like a giant minion in his bridge design. So, thank you.
So I'd like to open the public comment portion of our meeting. If some of you would like to address the commission,
I would
please.
personally put the safety and function higher than the aesthetics. And I've spent 4 years on the county Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and I have some familiarity with what bike and ped projects typically cost or funded at. And when you start getting in the numbers like 20 and 30 million for pure construction, not including the design and so on, that's really far above what you will typically see here. I think there are some the aesthetic features that can be cheaper and can also be functional, like lighting. We heard. I mean, I think you can do lighting that's both as safety, security. You can have some artistic component as well.
When we're talking about a bridge experience, we're talking about people that want to transport themselves from point A to point B, with the 101 being the barrier in the middle to that. No benches. We're not going to sit down and consider the freeway. You know, we're not going to stop and look at the view because there's nothing to look at. We're essentially crossing a 150-foot river full of cars with the currents going in 2 directions. So, as far as signature, if the traffic is working properly on the 101, they're not going to notice because they're moving at speed. If I'm going across the bridge at my 15 miles an hour, I'm not going to notice. The person that's on that bridge on foot is either going to work or he's going to notice nature when he crosses Norfolk Street and gets to the Bay Trail, because that's his destination. You've shown us pictures of destination bridges tonight. What we're looking for is viable crossing of a barrier. And on that barrier, it must be a minimum 12-foot unobstructed deck. Unlike the Belmont Bridge, one of the major reasons it's unsafe is that it's only 8 feet wide. There should be no curves. Also, I don't know how you're going to get around the Caltrain's requirement for fencing above 36 inches on a railing. Because, you know, you look at all of the bridges that they build, they don't want anything thrown on their freeways.
Flowers, plants, biophilia, things that make you feel like you're part of nature at either end, I think it would really add. It wouldn't be expensive. The third thing is access to Caltrain. My first rule in looking at this is, what about a 6-year-old on a bicycle or a 60-year-old or a 7-year-old in a wheelchair? We should plan for children and seniors, right? And so I would strongly like to investigate the Poinsettia Pacific connection, which would mean when you got off the bridge on the south side, you go up these cozy little suburban streets that are parallel to Hillsdale and would dead end into Pacific, which already provides an overpass to Caltrain. because the prospect of having a 6-year-old on a bicycle or a 65-year-old in a wheelchair crossing Hillsdale is just, it's untenable. I mean, it's not anything that's ever going to be safe unless you build a separate overpass. So
One bridge that I really like is the one in Burlingame going over to Broadway. I don't know if many of us have gone up that way.
$1 million.
It's functional, it doesn't look terrible, and you know, it's wide, easy grade to get up, it gets the job done. My main concern though is the landings on either side of the bridge. You know, Norfolk and Hillsdale, major intersection, a lot of cars, a lot of lanes. Hillsdale, well, right out here, right out the front door, major intersection, a lot of lanes. How do we ferry people across those intersections safely once they're over the bridge? You know, I think the bridge is, in a sense, the tip of the iceberg of this project. The landings are almost just as important.
yes.
What happens to pedestrians and cyclists on the other side?
And this is where a lot of the Fortune 500 folks like to live and play. And I think a bridge that connects the dots and means something to everyone that lives here would be something we could be proud of for a long time. So I think this is the first of many iterations, many opportunities for people to give input, and I'm looking forward to participating as this goes forward.
Thank you,
term that
Commissioner.
I think should be focused on embellishments rather than looking at, you know, majorly artistic designs, taking a functional design that conserves on cost with some sort of additions added to it as opposed to built into the actual structure itself. So lowering the overall cost, but perhaps having something that could maybe be able to be embellished over time. You know, maybe perhaps we have a grand plan and we add to that as money allows. And
I feel that we need to have not only a bridge that is very functional, and I think price is important. We need to be careful how much money we're trying to spend on this. I also would like to see something that says, you're now in San Mateo, that's beautiful. But not big, not pricey, simple. If you look at the bridge in Berkeley that crosses 101, I think it's like an Ashby.
Yes.
It's a simple arch, couple of cables, couple of artistic features at either end, and it looks beautiful. So if we could do something along that line without the Berkeley parts on each end, something else that says San Mateo.
I do think safety is the #1 priority. I didn't come here thinking that, but after listening to everyone speak, I'm remembering trips that I've made either walking or on a bicycle on the 3rd Avenue over 101 or the Monte Diablo over 101. The Monte Diablo one, the landings are great, but the ramps on either end are a disaster. The 3rd Avenue overcrossing, the crossing isn't that terrible, but the landings are not great. Both of them at either end, east or west, dump you sort of in no man's land. So I would hope that we wouldn't make that same mistake again. I think that's about it. I agree.
I worry about this because it is the entrance to San Mateo. It'll be the first thing that people see. At the previous meeting where you guys came, you know, I mentioned that some aspect of the bridge, it would be nice to reflect that you're about to enter San Mateo, because generally the drive on 101 as one gentleman mentioned, is nondescript and pretty awful in terms of aesthetics. And so there's an opportunity to at least let them know that they've entered someplace, even if it's, you know, through the cement barriers that are the 101.
That having been said, what I take away most from this meeting, and I use this word not that often, is the wisdom I've heard from the public. Every single word you all said came across to me as wisdom. You talked about safety. That's really important. You talked about having to get across Hillsdale Avenue once you come at this end. That needs to be an integral part of whatever we do about this. If we don't get that right, none of this is going to work, and we'll be sorry later. You talk,
And I would like to add that I was very impressed by the comments made by Pat Chorney and by Jim Whitaker. Thank you for pointing out that the practical cost is always a priority, but we want some beauty and some things that are outstanding. And to that end, I will give you what my idea is. Let's keep the bridge simple. Let's put a sign on there that says San Mateo, the heart of the peninsula. It conveys a message. We don't have to get fancy on our design. I'm all for saying this is San Mateo, heart of the peninsula, or something to that effect. We do want to stand out, but it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. That's my approach. Thank you for all your comments. It was really wonderful to hear from all of the commissioners this evening.
In order to stay up to date, we have a project website, hillsdalebridge.com. And this is the project website. If you feel that your comments haven't been heard, or if you have questions and it's too neurotic after the meeting here tonight, you can go to community input and you can enter in your contact information. We'll get back to you with questions, or if you, and then also the city has a website. It's the City of San Mateo .org/Hillsdale 101, and at the bottom for email updates, it's notify me, and you can get on the mailing list for that. And so the current funding that we have right now for the current phase that we're in, a project initiation document, we're working with Caltrain, it's with Measure A funding. And we just recently submitted and applied for Measure A funding for pedestrian and bicycle for the next phase, which is environmental. The great news is that Aaron talked about it earlier in the presentation, that the project is recognized countywide. It's part of the San Mateo County's bicycle pedestrian master plan. It's also in the San Mateo County Transportation Authority's expenditure plan. And then it's also in the city's general plan, the bicycle master plan, and the pedestrian master plan. So this really sets up the project for local, state, and federal funding for future phases.
Thank you very much for your help. Thank you to staff, thank you to citizens, thank you to all the commissioners, and with that, I will adjourn the meeting.